Good afternoon. My name is Rasha Mubarak, and we welcome you to the Alliance for Global Justice's press conference. I will be your MC. The spelling of my name and both of our other speakers are in the title. We will have three speakers today, myself, Camille Landry from AFGJ, Sherry Hunkala from Poor People's Economic Human Rights. Each speaker will give their remarks for 5 minutes, and if time allocates, we will provide a Q&A session. If there are questions, we ask that you provide your questions in the chat. We will only consider questions that include your name and which media outlet you are representing to help us identify how to best answer your questions. With that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. Amidst ongoing challenges and disruptions to our mission, the Alliance for Global Justice remains steadfast in the commitment to human rights, including those of the Palestinian people. The tactic of deplatforming has sought to obstruct, divert, and impede the efforts, affecting resources and funding. Today, you will hear from one of our fiscal sponsored projects about how these deplatforming attacks have impacted their organization. Despite these obstacles, AFGJ is unwavering in dedication to building a stronger, more unified grassroots movement. AFGJ is calling upon their allies to push back against these dangerous attacks, against the right to organize for justice and address grievances against governments. An organization, a human rights organization that works for justice and supports struggles, again, who fiscally sponsors over 140 grassroots organizations. Project's missions range from tutoring school children, working for environmental justice, and advocating for basic human rights and needs for vulnerable communities. As we know, deplatforming, repression, attacks, while some successful, while some disruptive, we understand the intent behind these attacks. These attacks are not new. These attacks are meant to redirect resources, energy, work, and funding for those who seek justice for all people, who do not exceptionalize who justice is for. These campaigns are meant to continue to disrupt the efforts of justice seekers, people-centered efforts and work. AFGJ is proud to announce the launch of the resistance movement this week. The resistance movement will underscore the work at AFGJ, who we are. We will not be intimidated as organizers, as activists, as advocates for human rights for all people. In our resistance campaign, you will learn, click on the link, and you will learn about the different events happening that will uplift AFGJ's mission and support the different work of the fiscal sponsored projects that we are in partnership with. AFGJ will have an Instagram Live with AFGJ representatives. We will have a webinar too with Cop City to Palestine. And of course, we have our press conference today. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Camille Landry from AFGJ.
Thank you, Rasha, and thank you to everyone who is in attendance. I'm here to talk not only about what's happening to Alliance for Global Justice, but what is happening to people's movements, to liberation movements, to the access to free speech, to organizations and people throughout this nation and indeed throughout the world. And it is a very dangerous set of precedents. Some years ago, first of all, let me talk about what deplatforming is. Deplatforming is the barring of an organization or individual or corporation from access not only to social media in certain cases, but also to vital financial platforms. Without these financial platforms, without these financial entities, it is impossible to do business. It is impossible or very difficult to raise money. It is a way of squelching dissent. It's a way of squelching free speech. It's a way of attacking organizations with whom you differ politically without coming straight out and doing so. And it is a very dangerous precedent. Enshrined in the U.S. Constitution to address grievances to their government and to speak their mind on political or other personal issues. Okay, there's a concept of the public square. Back in the 1700s and thereabouts, a public square was a physical place, the town square where people came to share news and to make their positions known. Now the public square, especially since the start of the internet, is a far more vast entity, and it includes social media platforms. Part of that is the ability to exchange money. If you were standing in the town square and you said, "Let us fight back against British occupation of North America," you pass a hat around literally. Nowadays, when we pass the hat around to enable people to do the work that their organizations espouse, which in AFGJ's case is exactly what our name says, global justice. Nowadays, when we pass the hat, we do it electronically. So when attacks force the end of an organization's relationship with those financial platforms, you've got a major problem. And it's a weapon that's being used for which there's no real recourse or no easy recourse. So one of the things that happened to Alliance for Global Justice is some years ago, the PayPal entity, financial entity, deplatformed AFGJ, said that you may no longer accept donations through PayPal. And then in 2021, we were deplatformed from Discover. Now, you might ask, how did that happen? How it happened is that a right-wing Zionist organization, so-called news media, the Washington Examiner, wrote a series of articles claiming that AFGJ was engaged in illegal activity. It's patently false. There's no evidence to support it. There's no justification for it other than that Alliance for Global Justice supports the human rights and the liberation of the people of Palestine. So by slinging mud at AFGJ, the Examiner and its cohorts managed to get us deplatformed first from PayPal and then from Discover Card. Later on, other financial organizations were contacted and the same allegations made, resulting in our deplatforming for them. Now, you have to understand that these organizations that handle credit card and debit card clearance are kind of the first and foundational step in the global financial market. Many, if not most of the transactions, financial transactions that go on in the world today go through these merchant banks. They're not the kind of bank that you can walk into on the street and open a savings account. They are gigantic financial conglomerates that really control the global economy because they control the flow of money for businesses, for organizations, and for individuals. So the increasing frequency of these attacks has resulted in the inability of organizations who are attacked like this to do their basic business. As a nonprofit, the ability to raise money is really our lifeblood. The thing about all of this is that at its core, it is an attack on our First Amendment rights. It's an attack on the ability of anybody to say what needs to be said and to do the work of justice, of creating justice and human rights for people across the world. One of the issues with this is that people equate being anti-apartheid in Israel with being anti-Semitic. That's like saying because you're anti-racism in the United States, you're anti-American. Nothing could be farther than the truth. As a matter of fact, the contrary is true. If you really believe in justice, if you really believe in freedom, if you really believe in democracy, then you believe and will uphold the ability of people to do what needs to be done to speak truth to power. That's what Alliance for Global Justice does, and that's what we were attacked for. And that is a very, very dangerous precedent. So, what we're asking our supporters to do, and not just people who support the work we do, but if you believe in free speech, if you believe in democracy, you will join us in our resistance to these deplatforming attacks that, in fact, try to squelch those very things upon which the U.S. democracy is supposedly founded. If you support human rights globally, then you support the work that we're doing. And that's what we're asking for our supporters. And that is the story that we're telling today.
Thank you so much, Camille. Next up, we have Sherry Honkala from Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign, Poor People's Army. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me today at the press conference. Like you said, I'm a member and an organizer for the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign and the Poor People's Army. I'm proud to say for like the last 10 years, the Alliance for Global Justice has played an important role in helping us hold on to necessary funds. Our work on a daily basis consists of feeding families, housing them, assisting seniors, people with disabilities, people that are on the bottom from across the entire country. Sadly, many years ago, about 7 years ago, myself, Sherry Honkala, I was designated as one of 13 people in most danger doing human rights work in the U.S. That was a sad day for me to know that somebody that was a part of pioneering economic, social, and cultural rights issues was in danger for doing something as horrible as feeding, clothing, and housing families. But we knew that we really wanted to be a part of this press conference today because we were greatly impacted. The day that we were no longer allowed to accept online donations with credit cards, we were absolutely devastated. For us, it felt like a truck had hit us. I remember that day very well. I believe it was like raining out, and we had to transport some families. And then all of a sudden, we could no longer accept online donations with credit cards. This, of course, became an internal public relations nightmare, because how do you explain to donors who aren't necessarily familiar with what the government does to organizations that are fighting for human rights? So we tried to navigate through that process when all of our money basically comes donated online with credit cards. So we had very little access to any kind of resources. We know that we needed to be a part of this press conference because we stand in solidarity and support the Palestinian people. We have, and we always will. And we support every other organization that's fighting for peace and justice in this country and around the world. And we know that it's really true when they talk about first they come for this person, then they come for that person, and then they come for you, and then there's nobody left to stand up. This is a very serious attack that the Alliance for Global Justice is facing, but it's not just the Alliance for Global Justice. It's all of us that are in the resistance movement. And we want to encourage everybody that's watching this today to spread the word and to support the resistance movement, to join it, to support all of the organizations that make up that the Alliance for Global Justice is fiscal sponsors for. This is an amazing group of people that are doing amazing work in this country, and we can't let them be silenced, cut off, or to mess with their money. If we live in a democracy, we need to start acting like we really do, and let people continue to go about their human rights work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Despite these accusations, despite causing financial institutions to cancel AFGJ's contracts for accepting credit card donations, despite it all, AFGJ, as you've heard, remains steadfast. Our fiscal sponsored projects, our allies and our partners have. We have had over close to 100 signatories, initial signatories on our statement that you can find on our link tree, signing in support of not only AFGJ as an organization, but who we are as a movement that continues to center the most impacted people. As a Palestinian American, I am proud of the Alliance for Global Justice. I am proud of its organizations that in a world where they try to pit good activists versus how they depict a bad activist, in reality, it is about how we center the most impacted, the most vulnerable, and how we continue to remain unfazed through it all. AFGJ is proud to reaffirm their commitment to this people-centered solidarity from the Palestinian people who struggle for national liberation and against unjust occupation to their work for immigration justice and human rights for all. In fact, AFGJ is more committed than ever to pushing back against the forces of imperialism and repression. Again, we are excited to announce this launch of our resistance movement. Check out our link tree for our second webinar in partnership with Sami Doon and the Black Alliance for Peace coming up this Thursday, our Instagram Live, and of course, our Instagram Live with Camille Landry that happens tomorrow. We are welcoming any questions in the chat. If there are no questions, please follow up with the contacts that you have for any additional interviews with AFGJ. For a follow-up interview, we are more than open to do those kinds of interviews with other organizations and fiscal sponsored projects. Thank you again for joining our press conference. Please tune in to our events this week and stay tuned how AFGJ continues to push back and stay focused on the people. Thank you.